Yes, so I got here a couple days ago. I was in Arizona. I arrived so that I could do a report on the Matilija Dam. There were, yesterday in particular, there was an amber alert for flash flood warnings. So I went up there anyway, but there was road closures. I got through to the part where they had the flooding and there was a huge river behind in the canyon. So there was no getting back there. However, today is a little better. It's stopped raining a couple hours ago, but today is 93% rain, and we'll probably have under a half an inch of rain today. So we're looking at tonight at least over a half an inch of rain again with high winds.
Wow, and so there you are in a natural system. You have rain falling into the land and into the river and going to the sea. So you're witnessing the
Yes,
natural
so
process.
yes, and the reason why I wanted to go in particularly yesterday or the day before is so that I could go there because they did do draining of the behind the Matilija Dam, and so I know that there is a lot of you know things going on down at the bottom, things that have not been revealed or unearthed or for many years, and so it's going to be particularly important for us to go in there and do some investigation of what's there. And now that we've had the flooding and the river pushing everything, rock debris and life and things that are down there, it's filling up again behind the dam. So we don't know how long we'll have to wait again to go see, particularly if the water levels are going to go down so that we can go and do some investigation. And yes.
So you're talking about what's been described as cultural resources, right?
Yes, we're talking about a history of a massacre of the last stand of the Chumash people. And this took place in probably 1840s, and between that and 19 over the turn of the century. And the last stand is particularly important for that area back there because they had come up against that area where the hot springs are, all the way to where the lake is and the dam is, and that's where a lot of the massacre had taken place. And I have done some research looking into that particular time in history to find out if there has been any other things written about that historical landmark, and I can't find very much. So we're really interested in seeing, what may be there at ground zero after the water has been drained. Now, I know that 15, 20 years ago, they did a feasibility study, and the Army Corps of Engineers recruited us at the Mesa Matilija Environmental Science Area to be part of a, crew and to be part of a logistical force and task force to be able to go back there and help to identify native species and also to help in the study of removing the dam. So since then, they did do, I think in 2010, they did some detonating and explosion. But after that, it's just always been in funding and a retrospective, ideology of what should happen. I do know that 6 years ago, I forgot, let me see, I think her name is Candace Menigan, if I'm pronouncing that right. Well, she did she wrote about 170 million funding plan and a 3.3 million grant for the Matilija Dam ecosystem. And that was for a restoration program. So that was really motivating and inspiring because they got in there, even though the Army Corps of Engineers and all of those who want to do the detonation and remove the dam and drain it, we are looking at a very sensitive ecosystem. And behind the dam, up through the canyon, there's at least 4 ecosystems. And so I have witnessed myself the different riparian, woodland, wetland, and dry rock bed ecosystems. And so they have recognized this as a very sensitive place that, can do studies and also host a variety of animals, and very sensitive place for animals to be and the ecosystem to grow and thrive. However, at the same time, 20 years ago, Monsanto went back there and was doing spraying glyphosate, and they were doing eradication of non-native species. So we had to do a lot of propagation of the natural native, like the willow and other plants and trees, so that we can save those, and the medicines back there. There's an array of medicines and root systems, and so foraging and gathering is very prevalent to the native people. And so we had to realize that they were spraying and overspraying a lot of the medicine. So that caused a lot of controversy. So that's why Patty Pegling created pesticide-free Ojai, and that's stopped the spraying. And so since then, it has gained a lot of momentum, and she is still active, and that's who we're going to be doing the reporting with back there with her. She still lives back there. There's many people that do live back there. Some people have gotten sick, so there's a lot of controversy on that spraying. And this funding, the dam removal, the 2 bridge replacements, and 3 layers of the 3 levels upgrades, I should say, new operations for the Robles diversion, Santa Ana Bridge. So other elements are in play. And so she attended a program update in December, and they're doing 100% design and a supplement on that. So when that comes out, she's doing her planning, and they're doing that supportive ecosystem restoration. So Ventura County, on the other hand, is just seeing dam removal and removing of it, so that, as we talked about, the spawning of the salmon and things like that can happen. The life force that lives there, that thrives there, can go back to its natural habitat. So at this time, that would be a disruption for them to want to do a hatchery there. It would just disrupt the whole ecosystem and the natural habitat.
I see.
We would, for the vision of, yes.
So in other words, if they were going to have a hatchery to help restore the fish stocks, it wouldn't be there. I mean, you could release the fish there so that they imprint on the water and they return there, but the hatchery itself doesn't have to be at that location.
Yes. And of course, when the dam is removed, what happens is it connects to other fingers of tributaries, lakes, creeks. And so that's going to create another vein of waterways for the LA River. So I think the vision would be to create a plan or a steering committee for a planning of all of the restoration of natural habitat to connect all of the river systems. Yes.
That's a vision, to look at what the river once was and to not compromise by saying, we're going to let these stocks go extinct. Can you talk about that a little bit, like what your feelings are about it, and like what a tribal perspective might be, or the Chumash perspective? I mean, not specifically with regard to the species or science, but what does a restored ecosystem provide for the people? What does it look like?
I am not Chumash. I am Chiricahua Apache and Pascual Yaqui. I have worked in the lands of the Chumash territory, the coastal band, and also behind Matilija in the Matilija Environmental Science Area. So I have seen an array of designs and what you can call planning for different waterways, fisheries, hatcheries. But I think for a natural ecosystem, at this point in time in history, of course, we can't go back and restore anything to its natural. We can only support, introduce, and be able to encourage growth, spawning, and natural habitat. So at this time, I do know that the story of like the spectacular steelhead trout that used to swim in the Los Angeles River, for instance, and of the current efforts to restore conditions for the steelhead there and the native fish. The LA River Passage and Habitat Structure Design Project is now underway, which I encourage everyone to support in any way they can. And that is being able to, it's like, for instance, the stewards of the Arroyo Seco, okay, they're putting steelhead and the LA River agenda first and foremost. And they're recovering the steelhead populations in the LA River watershed. Now, that sounds all pretty and nice, but you just can't put things back without also looking at the native species plants and what has been done. And also, when I have seen the coexistence in the bioregions of natural native plants and species cohabitate and the ecosystems disturbed because of dams and pollution, then we see a lot of things happen where there becomes a lot of problems, especially with pollution in the waterways. And so what happened, as they say, what happens upstream comes downstream. And so we really need to look at the watershed. We need to look at also what is the ecosystem at this time, because ideally we can't go back in time and restore it to what it was naturally. It just can't. It's not going to be that way. We have to work with the native plant species that are going to actually create that photosynthesis, the natural biorhythms of the waterways, which will support the life and habitat of the natural ecosystem of the fishery and the plants and the animals and things that come there. So I think that we have to look at, for myself and other native peoples, we're looking at not only restoring the original fish to be able to have a supportive habitat, but we're looking at the plants and the ecosystem and the whole natural biorhythms of all of that together. And I think that when we try to put dams up, or when they have tried to put things in place to stop water or make water move in the direction they want, they've seen that creates problems, as we say, downstream. So it's really important that they do consult with native tribal land people. And also, there are tribal coastal bands that have been working symbiotically with the wetlands, with the riparian lands, with the woodlands. And we know that it all is in relationship. And you can't change that. You can try to, but we know that you can't change it. It all has a relationship together.
Thank you. That's really insightful for people who have little experience or have not thought this through in any meaningful way. So I know you're not going to speak for the Chumash people, but in your view and experience, do they identify as salmon people?
Yes, they do. They have different bands, and the coastal band, and there has the Pasadena Council, and they do identify. They are coastal territory. They are coastal people. They are people who take a lot of honor in the medicine and the waterways and the life force that are there. And so I know that, they have yet to be consulted really with the Army Corps of Engineer and the political arena of what should happen at the dam and what could happen. But I do encourage them to look at the history back there. look at that and, take the appropriate measures so that it could be, they're able to look at what the history is and how they can honor that history of what happened and then move on and be a part of the decision making, for what's going to happen there in that area. You have a quarry a rock quarry across the way that has been there for 30 to 40 years. And that quarry is very an important, crucial aspect of this dam, which is just across the road. So that quarry, all this quarry activity has created its own dam, and the rock and the debris has, for 40 years, has built up right there in that area, in the water area, in the river as it flows. So, they have to have that vision of being able to look and see how the relationship to that right there is going to determine what's going to happen in the waterway system and what direction it's going to go. So it's only approximately 6 to 10 miles from the ocean, what we're talking about, the Matilija Dam. So it's not far at all. It's going to be a very highly sensitive issue when it comes to finding, to directing what they want to do actually and how they want to create that water system to go to the ocean. Because, a lot's been done. A lot of damage has been done by damming up that area, which, is not needed anymore. So I think just like the Hoover Dam, it reminds me of the construction of the Devil's Gate Dam in 1920. And the Steelhead could no longer reach the cold waters of the upper mountain watershed of the Arroyo Seco to spawn. And the subsequent connection of the Arroyo Seco stream and the Los Angeles made return basically impossible. So if you look at it today, the Iron Gate, they call them. The Iron Gates are the ones that, all the dams up, all the way up north, all the way up to Washington. That created a lot of detrimental value to not only people personally in their life to get to fish for their families, but it created also, it devalued the whole ecosystem along the way, because, animals who would go into the water and to fish for themselves, animals, the natural way, the spawning, of course, of the steelhead, So we know all of this, but, it still happened. Those dams went up, and now we have to live with that and course correct it. And I'm not the one that's going to make those decisions, but I do believe that consulting the people of the local tribe and First Nation people is so important. They didn't consult them when they put the dams up, and so, but I think now to course correct that would be good to have that relationship so that it can be done in the manner of relationship to all things, all life force.
I grew up in Pasadena, right by the Arroyo Seco, and there's a mandate in the state of California to teach the Native American history in 3rd grade for all the kids, and no one told us about the Arroyo Seco, the inhabitation of the area, or the Devil's Gate Dam. And years later, I wrote a piece called Rose Bowl Genocide. It was during the Rose Bowl game, and a lot of people were very interested in reading this. And the area was inhabited by the Shashamunga people, who are a band of what we call Tongva, who are Chumash relative, essentially, very close. And so this information was suppressed from my education growing up. And I was so surprised to find out this information, that there had been a massacre there at Arroyo Seco and the Devil's Gate Dam as well. And that was, of course, a sacred area and a village site. And Shashamunga was the name of the chief and the tribe and the place. So do you have any thoughts on that? That's all from research and book learning, but that's what I picked up because I lived there. I grew up there. That was my home. That was where my spirit lived when I was 5 years old.
Wow.
So I'm learning.
So you grew up, yes. Yeah, you know, that's important. You know, those stories that you're talking about are oral stories that we value as first witness account. You know, and this is important, what you're speaking of, being able to have a relationship with the rivers. And today, you know, that's not so. And so I do know that, what I do know is that there has been a change, and since the dams and the waterway systems, and just even water rights. We were talking about that the other day. Golden State, you know, they came into California and they had created contractual agreements for the water rights of California, especially Ventura County and Ojai. And what happened was we seen a lot of large volume of water being taken without the pipes being able to support it. So it created disaster and emergencies after emergency. And those things are still in play, and that damage is still being restored today from that volume of water being taken. And so I think we need to look at that, like you say, of what used to be, and the rivers and the waterways that we used to have access to, we no longer have access to it. I think we need to look at that perspective and say, you know, when is enough? You know, being able to have agricultural agreements and contracts to take that water and move it to a different county is fine, but to move it to another country, I think is not okay. It not only impacts the local waterways, but it impacts the homeowners and all of the development that has to happen. So yeah, that is a big problem with our system water that is moved in large volumes. And, you know, no one 100 years later, you know, thought that there would be hope that we can bring some of the trout and native fish back to the river. The Los Angeles River Fish Passage Habitat Structures is exploring how to design stream improvements that will provide good habitat and conditions for steelhead trout and other native fish in a 4.8-mile stretch of LA River near downtown LA. This project objective is to enhance native fish habitat linkages and migration corridors in the more natural section of corridors. So you see, they are looking, so we have hope. They are looking at natural corridors of water where the habitat is moving and growing and thriving naturally. And to take a look at that before we just introduce all these trout back, we need to really see how the adaptation is going to be. It's like introducing, you know, an animal back into the wild, or an eagle or a hawk back into the wild. You know, you have to look at their predatory habitat and their practices and their survival skills. Okay, same with the plant, same with the fish, same with any animal. So I think that's where a lot of the encouragement is, that I see people and local support having a voice, is the project objective is to enhance the native fish habitat linkages. So the proposed construction will involve cutting and modifying the concrete channel that now lines the river to enhance habitat and migration corridors for native fish while maintaining flood management capacity. So we are, 100 years later, looking at different technology for construction or ways to create pathways for the symbiotic relationship to happen naturally, which is important.
After all this time, and I'm going to play some clips in this broadcast from the Elwha River, which was the site of the first dam removal major industrial dam removal project in the world, actually. And we have friends there, and that I was involved with that. And you'll be doing an interview, we think, with one of the family members who belongs to the Klamath tribe, and the women particularly stood for this restoration and helped educate the larger non-native community and the community itself to pursue dam removal, and they were successful. And in 2011 and 2014, the dams were removed on the Elwha, and the salmon are now returning. The steelhead are returning in great numbers, far greater than anticipated, and even Chinook are on their way back, step by step. So how do you feel about that?
We have women on the front line, and the spectrum of the front line has different positions. We not only have people who are actually boots on the ground, who are on the front line, going toe-to-toe with rallies and caravans to different events and traveling, like myself. But we also have the perspective of how to help and support that through legal aspects and administration, through nonprofit organization or funding. So we have an arrayed spectrum of all these positions on the front line, and we are going to be having a series of women's voices on the front line, and it's going to be exciting. And we are going to have a lineup of women ranging from lawyers to people who are in administration, politicians to actual frontline people who are actually boots on the ground. So it's going to be an exciting series, and we would love to have you join in the conversation. If you know anyone who would like to also have an interview with anyone that is on that front line that would like to contribute to the conversation.
At night, the salmon move out from the river and into town. They avoid places with names like Foster's Freeze, A&W's, Smiley's, but swim close to the track homes on Wright Avenue, where sometimes, in the early morning hours, you can hear them trying doorknobs or bumping against cable TV lines.
Up at these mountains, they have stories where they were recalling where the changer was.
We wait up for them. We leave our back windows open and call out when we hear a splash. Mornings are a disappointment. Raymond Carver.